the question is, can we fix the open digital advertising supply chain? So I'm going to leave it to you.
So we started with, what are the most pressing issues around this topic, and there was a lot of conversation and debate. I think, the first pressing issue that we really talked a lot about was who owns the problem and who's responsible for fixing the problem. And it is a big issue because there's a lot of finger pointing in the industry. Is it a publisher issue? Is it a buyer issue? Is it a seller issue? And so, I think the issue of where the problem resides is huge, and we've all got to step up and own it. The second piece that follows on out of that is that there's a lack of transparency about what the problem actually is and where it sits. And so if we're going to solve it, we have to actually be able to define it and size it and be open and transparent about where we need to go to solve it.
Yeah, and that even includes simplification of how fraud happens. Like, people don't understand how computers get taken over. They're real browsers, they're real cookies, just being automated with no person there. And that led to one of the next problems, which was we were having a conversation about fraud, and there was a separate conversation happening about viewability. And, you might be able to say not all non-viewable ads are fraud, maybe not, but you certainly can't say that any fraudulent ad is viewable.
Correct.
Right? So the fact that only inside of this room with these publishers and these smart people do we separate such a nuance. Yep. Whereas if you walked by someone on the street and you said, well, what is an impression? They'd say something someone can see or can make an impression. And so I really think one of the big things the IAB could do is standardizing between, if we're going to move towards viewability, and if viewability has the right checks and balances in it for, well, it can't be fraudulent if it's viewed by a human, then we can simplify it by having a simple one conversation rather than two.
So that's an interesting point because, Randy, there's a lot of sort of conflating the fraud issue with viewability. And I think one of the concerns is we'll flip the viewability switch and there may be a presumption, which is likely untrue, that we've solved the fraud issue. Because, well, if it's viewable, that means there was a human. And what's likely going to happen is viewability will front run sort of the fixing of fraud, and so we'll come out in the marketplace with viewability, yet we'll have all these fraudulent bot-generated impressions that will actually qualify or appear to be viewable. And I think it's a great issue that this group came up with because, there's going to have to be some, education in the marketplace of we're attacking viewability, which doesn't necessarily solve, though should, the fraud problem.
Well, and then the converse also, non-viewable ads are not at all necessarily fraudulent. They're just non-viewable ads.
They don't have value.
Right. They don't have the same value, and they work in a different value construct than viewable ads. I'm always saying there's a perfectly legitimate role for non-viewable ads in the sense that they're part of a broad mass buy for direct response or CPA marketers. So they're buying at a lower price.
He's about to object.
Go ahead.
Can I object to that? I mean, sure, they could be, if they're non-viewable, they're never seen, they're never inventory. So it's fine if they're in the CPA, but if they never become viewable, they can never be clicked on. So they're really, it's almost like they're a non-existence. I think the thing to think about on the viewable side is that if we define viewable as viewed by a human, not viewable by a human, which is hard, but it's giving us something to strive for. I mean, Google's mission was organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. The IAB setting out a mission that, everything should be valuable, right? Something that is never viewed can't have value until it's viewed, right?